It's time for our short stories now. Rachel's going to introduce them. I think we've got 4, have we?
We have. Thank you, Fiona. Yes, this is one of our most popular slots in the Joined Up Conference. So popular, in fact, that we're actually having 2 lots of short stories today, a set this morning and then a set after lunch. So I'm going to invite our short story people up from the first session just to come to the front, because one of the things that designates our short stories is that they're short. Luckily, I'm not in charge of timekeeping because that's not one of my strong points, but we do have a clock up there, and when we get to the end of the 4 minutes, it'll start to do flashy things, and we'll have to move on. But it's a real pleasure to have you with us. Are you Jenny or Jane?
I'm Jane.
Jane. So we've got Jane with us from the Children's Society, and she's going to be sharing all of our short stories are inspiring. Some of them we can support and get behind, some of them we can get involved with, and some of them we can replicate. So we're really keen, Jane, to hear what you've got to share with us.
Thank you. Trying to get any of my talks down to 4 minutes. 4 minutes is really difficult. I do tend to waffle on. So today in the UK, there are over 4 million children living in poverty. That's 4 million children going without what is deemed for a healthy and happy life. 36% of young people living in Sheffield are living in poverty. Sheffield has over 13,000 young people aged 5 to 19 who are struggling with mental health and have to wait an average of 52 days for referral from first treatment. And last year in Sheffield, 167 children were identified at risk of sexual exploitation. So where is God when all these despicable things are happening to young people? This is where faith comes in. Faith is a crucial part of our relationship with God. We don't always understand God or what he is doing. Sometimes we may feel like our young people are up against a wall and are being run down by a fierce army, and God is nowhere to be seen. Surely that is the definition of faith. How do we know something is true? I challenge you to test the idea described in John 7:17, that if we want to know something is true, we have to try it out. And following James 1:22, prove yourself doers of the word and not merely hearers. We don't just want to know it's a good thing. We want to find out for ourselves that it really makes a difference. Sometimes doing good is a series of small but meaningful actions. Other times it involves a grand gesture. There is no doubt that these grand gestures are built out of faith and love. But it's important not just to make these grand gestures. Clearly, it's not something that's within all our reach. Doing good every day in small ways. For example, praying for the 36% of young people in Sheffield suffering from poverty, or signing a campaign to request the government increase funding for children's mental health services so that no child has to wait 52 days following a mental health crisis. Taking part in a challenge event that pushes our bodies to the limit, whilst raising funds to help create systems changes that will prevent children and young people being pushed in front of those that will exploit them. It's important to be ready to serve at all times. You never know when you can help someone make a difference by your faith in action through your time, money, and prayer. James chapter 2, verses 14 to 17 says that, my brothers and sisters, what good is it if people say they have faith but do nothing to show it? Claiming to have faith can't save anyone, can it? Imagine a brother or sister who is naked, never having enough food to eat. What if one of you said, go in peace, stay warm, have a nice meal? What good is it if you don't actually give them what their body needs? In the same way, faith is dead when it doesn't result in a faithful activity. Oh, I've lost the rest of my slides. So, doing faith at all times can involve things like going out and meeting young people, as many of you do, or you could come along to my stall at the end of this and see how you can express your faith in action. I look forward to seeing you all on my stall. Thank you. I hope that was informative.
Thank you so much, Jane. We wouldn't dare not come and visit you. We're on our way. We're on our way. You did really well. You did really well. Thank you. Okay, next up we have Hannah Persuad, who's coming to talk to us from the Kitchen Table Project. Good to have you with us, Hannah.
Oh, hi everybody, it's lovely to see you. So I'm Hannah, I'm from Kitchen Table Project. I'd love to see you in the marketplace later and talk to you about Care for the Family and the work that we do with for families and parents. But right now I'm just going to talk to you as a normal mum, a very normal mum of some normal children. We live in a small house in a small town that you wouldn't have heard of in the middle of nowhere. And our house happens to be next to a nature reserve that used to be an old quarry, really industrial, wrecked the land, and it's been recently turned by the Wildlife Trust into a nature reserve and has become a site of special scientific interest. And as you can imagine, because it's free and beautiful and right next to my house, we spend a lot of time down there. And as my kids have grown up just mucking around down there, looking at ants and birds and geese, they've come to love the place and feel really passionate about it. And as they've grown in faith, they've, of their own accord, really begun to understand about how that place and creation is linked with their faith. Anyway, my story isn't about my kids, although they are lovely. This story is about the church and our local church, which is a really tiny church that, again, you wouldn't have heard of, and how they really, really empowered my children and our family and really supported us as parents in raising our children in faith. So, during the pandemic, doing a lot of Zoom church, hard work, and it came to the time in the year where the church was evaluating the giving and in terms of local community and overseas projects, and they just invited anybody in the church to come to a meeting the next week with any charities or projects that are on their hearts. And when we got home at lunchtime, my children said to us, why don't we give any money to the Wildlife Trust, because that is our community. The birds and the fish and the ducks and the beetles, they're part of our community, right, because God made us all together. So we said, well, if you feel like that, go to the meeting and say that to the church. And so they did. And our church, and then we didn't say anything else. Like, as parents, we just stood back and let it happen. And our church was absolutely amazing. So same as everybody else, the kids were asked to go and ask the Wildlife Trust, like what they need money for, what their projects are doing, how we could possibly support them. So they were sent off with this little project. At the time, they were 9 and 11. So they wrote a little email, got in touch with them, got some information. And the Wildlife Trust, I think, thought that they were talking to two children who had maybe some pocket money to give, and did a lovely, lovely job of writing back and encouraging them. And to cut a long story short, because I've got no idea where I am in my 4 minutes now, the church was just amazing and took their idea on board, discussed it properly, like they discussed all the other projects, and said, yes, we would really like to support them. We'd like to give them quite a large donation, but we'd also like to support them monthly on an ongoing basis. But, kids, it was your project, so would you be okay to lead us in that? Because you've taught us something, you've made us think about our local community and what we mean when we say that. So the money was all set up and transferred. The Wildlife Trust was quite surprised at how rich these children suddenly seemed, and asked if the kids would like to organise a walk for our church members to go and walk around the nature reserve and learn about it. And the kids realised that actually, because we're still on Zoom, loads of people are still shielding, that was going to be quite difficult for some of our members. So they borrowed my phone and went down and made a little video and did their own tour, during which they explained stuff that was going on down the nature reserve, as in some of the work that's being funded by the church, but also stopped and just explained in their own very, very simple, childish and beautiful language why it's important, how they feel about God when they're down there, what they can see when they look around them, what it says in the Bible about creation and faith. And they sent this off to just on our church WhatsApp group, and they also sent it to the Wildlife Trust. And both organisations together have just done something amazing for our children. They've taken their ideas seriously. They've allowed themselves to be led in worship and understanding of the Bible by two very small children who just have something on their hearts. And as parents, they've really encouraged us to nurture that faith, which is just, it's not a program, it's not a project, it's not something massive and set up. It's just listening to them, to these two ordinary kids, just listening to them and then saying, yes, we would love to be led in worship by you.
Fantastic. Super inspiring, thank you. And our young people leading the way again. And next up is Chris Nall from the Sheffield Christian Youth League. Chris, are you? Yeah, brilliant. Now, many moons ago, I don't look the epitome of football, clearly, but I used to run the league at Sheffield Christian Education Council, and Jenny before me, so we're really excited that this is still happening. Over to you, Chris.
Mike said that I should do kick-ups to make it more memorable, but because I'm a bit naff at them, I've just shoved a football on my head. So I hope that's all right. But I hope you're looking at me like you might kick my head in now, but please don't. So, Sheffield Christian Youth League, SCYL, is a football league, a five-a-side league for young people that runs just down the road at Goodwin Sports Centre. And we started that with a bit of an idea of wanting to have a five-a-side football league that would be able to have God at the centre for young people. And we sat down in 2008 and had a conversation about it. And then in 2009 we started. And then 13 years on, we're still going. And just trying to think, like, we've had maybe 1,500 young people, 17,000 goals, thank you, 150 bib washers, mainly in the last 2 years of the pandemic, I think, about 16 different churches partnered with, around 100 volunteers, people coming to know Jesus, countless funding pots. And I've been trying to work out how to sum up that in a story, and I don't think I can. But I've written a poem to try and help tell that story. It says, God at the centre, that is the truth. How can I show them the way for the youth? I'm out of depth, a man with a small idea, not even knowing his future career. Could I use sport to show the way that we can change how we play? Step out, step up, don't hold back. God is with you, you've got this, you won't be in lack. God-given contacts in 2008, January 2009, we'll call it a date. 13 years on, and what can I say? Thousands of kids all wanting to play. In every weather that you might have seen, we've been out there making a scene. Step up, step out, don't hold back. God is with you, you've got this, you won't be in lack. Leagues, tournaments, events and awards, goals, saves and making records. Helping players through tough times in life, on the pitch, handling handbags and strife. Games of despair and joy to please us, young people coming closer to Jesus. Step out, step up, and don't hold back. God is with you, you've got this, you won't be in lack. So what's my advice these years on? Take the chance before the years have gone. Don't be afraid, mistakes are okay. Make sure you give the time to pray. Sport is amazing, use it for sure. With God in the middle, it'll be so much more. Step up, step out, and do not hold back. God is with you, you've got this, you will not be in lack. I'm on the Marketplace store as well. If you want to ask any questions or chat to me, I'll be there. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Chris. Wonderful. Excellent. Right, lastly but not leastly, we've got Beth Stout from Goddigger joining us. Thank you, Beth. Now, Beth and Goddigger are with us most years, actually, but today you're talking about well-being and A&E. Okay. Here we go.
Thanks. Good morning. My name's Beth, and I have the privilege of leading a charity called Goddigger Trust, which some of you will have heard of and know lots about, and some of you will be thinking that's the most controversially named charity I've heard of recently. If you want to know the actual most controversially named charity ever, come and see me later. It's too inappropriate to say down a microphone. But I have the privilege over the last 16 years, we have been working with young people here in Sheffield and across the Sheffield area around young people's well-being, helping to dig out the gold in them. That's what is behind the name. And we, over the last few years, have particularly been doing a lot of work with young people around mental health and our kind of wider well-being. And so I wanted to share something a little bit today, really tapping into the theme that is joined up. I think having been a church youth worker and a volunteer youth worker in churches, sometimes I've felt at least like the issues that some of my young people are experiencing just feels huge. And that has become even more apparent during the pandemic, as we've seen young people struggling with their mental health, with their well-being. And we have always, as Goddigger Trust, felt that we sit within the kind of church community, within how the church responds to our young people's needs around this, by offering them hope and help and skills to be able to look after their well-being for themselves. Now, we knew before we went into the COVID pandemic that there was a real crisis in young people's mental health. And COVID has only served to make that even worse. But it has also presented some great opportunities. And so I wanted to share a little bit about how we are joining up all the kind of different places that young people are engaging. And that is through a project in Sheffield Children's Hospital. During the pandemic, we were approached by the Children's Hospital Emergency Department to look at how we could work better with them to support young people who are in a mental health crisis. And so now, I can't tell you the whole story because I've got about 2 minutes left, but what I wanted you to know really is that 5 days a week at Sheffield Children's Hospital, we've now been able to embed our wellbeing youth workers in the emergency department at the hospital. What that means is when a young person comes maybe in a mental health crisis, we're talking about young people who've attempted to take their own life, overdoses, we're talking about self-harm, but all the way through to actually young people who've maybe punched a wall. And A&E is a great place to fix up their hand, but it's not the best place to be able to talk to them about why they punched a wall in the first place. And so we're able to be there to both reach out to them, meet them where they are, and then get them into the community so that we can do long-term follow-up support with them too. I want to let you know, A, because it's really exciting, and it's really, we're really just chuffed to be able to do it. But also, I think sometimes when you've got a young person, maybe in your youth group, who is experiencing some of these things, and you maybe hear they've gone to A&E, or they're on a waiting list for CAMS, you can feel a bit like, this feels a bit out of my depth. How do I respond? And so I just wanted to let you know that we're there too. And if you're kind of worrying or wondering what to do, please pray for them, but please also know that we're there, and we will be able to offer them that long-term support around their well-being so that they can find their value, so that we can dig through all that rubbish and help them unearth the gold in them. Please do come and find out a bit more about the work that we're doing at Goddigger Trust at the marketplace later on. I won't be there because it's my little girl's second birthday today, so I should probably go and see her. But the rest of our team will be there, so please do go have a chat with Gareth and Will later on. Thanks.
Fantastic. Thank you, Beth. So, 4 incredible stories, inspiring, and please do go find them in the marketplace. And I'm just going to hand over to Megan as she tells us about our coffee break and our lunch break, more importantly.